Welcome back to Broken Bobby's transformation page. In the late 80s, I became involved with drugs and would eventually become part of that lifestyle of trafficking, addiction, and violence. Over the next 20 years, I would be in and out of jail and prison. If you're thinking about trying something or you're dealing with addiction, your life don't need to go down the same path mine did. I hurt a lot of people, both physically and emotionally. These are my stories of how I transformed my life, and you can too. Let's get. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see by the thumbnail and the title, this is going to be holding cell adventures. And if you haven't been locked up or you don't know what a holding cell is, let me give you a brief explanation on that. So, if you are coming into a jail, you're going to be in a holding cell with several other inmates. Depending on which facility it is, it may be more, it may be less. Could be different things. LA County tends to be really packed. San Bernardino and Riverside weren't as bad. Typically, LA County takes forever to get processed into. Like, I've spent days trying to get housed. Typically in Riverside and San Bernardino, within 6 hours or so, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, you would be housed. Also, court lines, when you have like a court date or something, they'll put you in these holding cells for court, basically, and everybody in there is going to court. Typically, it's a little more mellow in these ones than when you're being processed in, because when you're being processed in, a lot of people are still under the influence or been drinking, whatever it may be. They're pissed off because they have been arrested. When you get to the point where you're going to court, it's not to say that there can't be tension in there in the court lines, but you're settled in already. You should be free of substances. It's not to say you're not, because the stuff gets in. And the other thing, you would be in a holding cell would be for transfers. If like for me, for instance, I was on probation in 3 counties: LA, Riverside, San Bernardino. So anytime I would finish up my time in one county, I would be sent to a holding cell with a hold on me, basically, for the next county to pick me up. And then either, Riverside, San Bernardino, LA, depending on where I was at, would come and they would pick up all the people that were being transferred from the county we were in to the next county. So I got some really good stories for you guys about some of the stuff that I've seen in these holding cells. But before I get to that, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Smash that like button if you enjoy this sort of content. Drop a comment. Tell me some of your holding cell adventures. Also, share the video. It is really helping us to grow. We are quickly approaching 1,200 subs, and shout out to you guys for that. You guys are the ones that make this channel move, so I appreciate you guys. Also, you can become a member of the channel, and it'll, like on the lives and stuff, it'll put a special little badge next to your name, which shows that, and it'll pin your comments on the lives as well. So check that out. And so let's get into it. So I was in Southwest Detention Center, and we were going to court. Now, in this one, we weren't necessarily being waiting for transportation to take us to court. We were just in holding cells waiting for court. And that's another example of why you'd be in a holding cell. Waiting for court to start, lunch break, waiting to be sent back to your housing unit, or waiting on transportation as well. So I'm in Southwest. And the way they did it in Southwest, for some reason, was, they would put you'd have the waist chains on, and uh, the fee chains. I think what it was we were being transferred from Banning to Southwest for court on this particular occasion, and there was a big native dude in there, and for some reason there was a homie, a Southsider, that had beef with this guy, and the native dude had the waist chains and the ankle chains. The Southsider didn't. I think he just had the waist chains, but they weren't connected to anything. And for some reason, they bumped heads, and the Southsider got his ass, basically, like put a whooping on this dude. And for some reason, they split him up at that moment. But the thing is, we were all coming from Banning over to Southwest for court. So now the way it works a lot of times is if you're in on a felony charge, your first time in court, which it was all our first times in court on that one, they're going to put your case over. Like, you can plead guilty, but they're just going to throw the book at you. So initially it's a not guilty plea, and then they set it over for like another week, and then they determine, where it's going to go from there. They'll give you an offer that next time, and if you take the offer, then that's what it is. And if you don't take the offer, then they'll start proceeding towards a court date and running a trial. But so these guys had bumped heads, and they end up sending us back. But before we went back, after we were done with court, the native was talking to some of the people in the holding cell. The Southsider was still out for whatever reason, and well, they had separated him, but he was going to be back with us as part of the transportation group. So the native was trying to pay for some help, basically, and he was saying, I got you when we get back if you just got my back, blah blah blah, and I'll shoot you some soups or whatever. Like, a lot of times those natives, they got money, from the, if they're part of a reservation or something. I don't know what his circumstances were, but, he portrayed it as he had money. And the thing is, if you accept that offer, then you may turn this into a bigger thing than it is. Because, I'm not going against the South for somebody that isn't of my organization. Somebody else ended up assisting him, I think, the next time around, and it was a big old ordeal, but I didn't, want nothing to do with that. So, eventually, I don't know what they did. I think I ended up taking the deal the next time, and I didn't have to go to court any further, but yeah, that was something else. So yeah, another time I was in LA County Jail, we were all being processed in, and there were probably about 40 guys or so in this holding cell, which was made for probably 10, and it was crowded. Now, there was a little Asian kid over there, and he was real quiet, and some of the Southsider homies hit him up about where he was from, and it turned out he was from a neighborhood that the Southsiders didn't like. It's politics and all. It's not my politics, so I'm not going to get too much into it. I did a story on it, but right off the top of my head, I can't think of what the title is. So if I can figure out what it was, I'll try to pin it in the comments. But yeah, so they ended up getting off on this kid, and pepper spray ended up flying, and eventually they'd pull the kid out and get us all into a different cell. But yeah, that was a pretty wild time. There was another time when I was in San Bernardino County, and this is another story I've told, but I was in the court line waiting. In San Bernardino County, they had these like turnstile things where you walk in and you got to push the turnstile. So you can go in basically, but you can't come out. And I was in there, and my guy Stan was coming through. My brother-in-law, somebody I had a lot of love for, and the thing is, he was black though. So, jailhouse politics and everything say that I'm not supposed to really be communicating with this guy, but I spoke with him, and somebody would end up hitting me up about that. And in a nutshell, basically, I told him, if it's an issue, then take flight, homeboy. You know what I mean? Like, that's my family on the streets. And it didn't end up being an issue, but it very well could have been. But, I mean, it was what it was for that one. Now, when I first arrived in prison at North Kern, I was in R&R, which is release and receiving, and there was a guy in there that they had on potty watch, and he was in like a single man type of setup. And what they do is they duct tape your jumpsuit so that you can't get rid of anything. And basically what that is it is what it sounds like. They're waiting for you to basically have a bowel movement, because they suspect that you have some hot contraband, whether it be a weapon, whether it be maybe some kites, which are inmate letters, basically, in a nutshell. Uh, and with hot kites, I mean, orders for somebody to do something to somebody, maybe unalive somebody, perhaps. I don't know. Or they suspect that you have narcotics, and they're suspecting you have all of this up in your rectum. So that's the reason they do potty watch. But that seemed so strange to me. I had never seen that before when I had arrived there. So yeah, that was definitely something different. And I'll finish the story off with a heartbreaking holding cell moment for me. I was in LA County Jail, and when you are being processed out to be released, you end up in this holding cell, and they come, they give you your clothing and stuff back, your property, and ultimately there's like this final door that you're trying to get to, which is freedom. And there's a few cells that you get dropped in between time. Like the one time I did get out of there, I think it took like 8 hours or so to get out. Like, nothing in LA County happens fast. The wheels grind very, very slow there. But so I made it through the first couple of cells, and now there's like maybe 4 of us in this cell, and they're starting to hand property to people that are going to be released, and they haven't given me mine yet. And I know I have issues in other counties. There's warrants where I shouldn't be getting released, but I'm very hopeful. And ultimately they let the other guys go, and they tell me, yeah, you got to hold out of Riverside. Heartbreaking moment. But that's some of the things that I've seen in the holding cells. Drop a comment and let me know some of the things you may have seen. Like, those holding cells can get pretty wild at times. So yeah, that's my video for the day. Family, fitness, and freedom are the things that keep me away from being in this types of situations, and they can help you as well. It's just a matter of making good decisions and building on that. So don't look at the mountain, just start climbing.